Hey, what's happening? My name's Khalil Kane, and you are listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
The Armitages are so good to us. They treat us like family.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. Really appreciate all the support. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Excited to be back with another film review. But before we jump into that, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. It's got everything on there that you need to know about this podcast or keep up with. All of our episodes, our interviews, our blog, our store. We got some new merch out. Check that out. It's got all of our social media links, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Go follow us, subscribe to us. We love interacting with all of you. It's really fun, chatting with our fans and, getting feedback. So definitely check us out there. And the last thing before we get into the film review, we got, if we get a lot of fans who ask how they can help support us and help us out, we have a Patreon called Blood Donors. We have the one-time donation, if you want to come on our show or pick a movie for us to review. Or we have the traditional Patreon, the reoccurring monthly thing. If you want to do that, jump on and join the team, join the Blood Donors. We'd really appreciate it. Tonight is Brother Dustin's pick. He chose. I'll let him tell us what we're reviewing tonight. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. Tonight, I thought that what better time than now, December, to pick a Christmas movie. I picked 2017's Get Out. Now, let me explain this to you because a lot of people might not get that, but around Christmas 2017, the year it came out, a Twitter user asked Jordan Peele, the writer and director of this movie, if this was a Christmas movie, and he replied, "Let's see, there's a man with a white beard, multiple deer, a fireplace, a bunch of snowflakes, and a guy named Chris goes down a dark hole. I say go for it." So that being said, I picked Get Out. I think that this movie, I don't know, like there's no real urge to do this from any of us. I didn't feel like, but I feel like it's one we had to do. So I just went ahead and said, let's knock this one out because I think this movie is universally received. Now, obviously, there's some detractors, but for the most part, most people can agree that this is an instant classic. It's got one of the highest Rotten Tomatoes scores of all time. So I think this movie is a very good commentary on the social norms that are unfortunate for so many of the people in America to deal with, and not just America, all over the world. It's uncomfortable. We're a bunch of white guys and an Asian, but I feel like we should do our best
in this movie too.
Yeah, I feel like we should do our best to knock this one out and provide our perspective on this film that's, in my opinion, a classic.
It's second in Rotten Tomatoes only to Cloverfield. Go ahead.
Oh, well.
Get the fuck out of here.
Has no credibility anymore. Sorry, Brian. I'll go next real quick. Saw this movie in theaters when it came out. Really liked it. I have really no complaints about the movie except kind of figured out the twist, I guess you could say, as soon as I saw the camera flash in the one scene. But still, incredible acting, top to bottom, I would say. Creepy atmosphere. I think the kills, once you get to them, are all pretty good. Yep. Daniel Kaluuya, I'm going to say this in my ending, did a fantastic job as the lead actor.
So good.
I really don't have much complaints about the movie. I think it's very good. I guess I would just say it's not one of the movies I would pick up to rewatch, kind of. It's not like this is a fun movie to watch, I would say. It's still a good movie, but it's not like one I'm going to pick up first to watch. I will say I do think that it's a little overhyped in some community, like Watch Mojo. They say it's like the best movie of the 2000s of horror movies. I don't agree with it that much, but I do think this is a very, very good movie, and I really enjoyed it. Mike, you want to go next? Brian?
Sure. Really quick, I'm sorry I sound like somebody put a pillow over my face. You have to forgive me. It's allergy season. It's cold season, so I sound like someone's holding my nose. I apologize, but I'm in rare form because I'm still drinking Coke Zero and Crown. They don't sponsor us, but they should. Anyway, okay, so I'll just come right out and be honest right off the top. I fucking love this movie. I mean, I think it's awesome. And I know that you said, Nico, they didn't have a lot of rewatchability, and that's understandable from a certain standpoint, but I've probably rewatched this one more than most horror movies that we do. Now, obviously, slashers don't count to me because I rewatch them sons of bitches all the time because they're fun. But this is one that's not fun that I think is quick enough. It's an hour and 44 minutes or whatever it is. It's quick enough to where I don't. Brian's going to be proud of me. I did not watch this movie on 1.5 speed. I know. And I've seen it a ton, and I still didn't do it.
You are sick.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was home from work today. I was home from work today because I had to go take a COVID test, and I'm negative, by the way, everyone. But I was like, I might as well watch it in full speed. Regular speed. I got nothing else to do. So anyway, I think the acting is tremendous. There's some recognizable faces. You have Catherine Keener, who's funny. I don't know if anyone else has the fan theory about her within this movie, but if you don't, I'll save it for our fun facts. I think it's a lot of fun to do. I think Jordan Peele does a great job in his first outing in horror. I think it's really, really good. I love the way the movie is shot. I think the score and the other music is very creepy. There's never a moment in this movie to me where I feel at ease. I think that's by design. And obviously this movie touches on a lot of social commentary. Obviously there's race relations and we can get to that. There's some satire in this film too that comments on other stuff. So I think it's a very fascinating way to tell a social story within a horror setting. Like I think it's done really, really well. And one thing I love about this movie is, sorry, Brian, but this movie is very Kubrick-esque in some ways with the symbolism. Almost everything in this movie, and if you listen to Jordan Peele's commentary on the DVD, he doesn't give everything away, but he tells you to find it. But there's all these little things that are symbolism within this film, and I just think that makes it kind of fun on a rewatch. So like, oh yeah, there that is. Oh yeah, there that is. Like I think that's really fun. There's nods to The Shining. There's nods to the Stepford Wives. There's nods to all kinds of stuff, and I just think it's
Return of the Living Dead. I think it's in there too.
Dude, there's a lot. And even the opening credits with the blue lettering, that's The Shining. He said I stole that directly from The Shining. So like again, so much in this 1 hour and 44 minutes. I think it's awesome. It's probably if you put a gun to my head and made me pick my top 10 favorite horror films, this makes my list. That's how much I enjoy this film, and I think it's really, really good. I'm excited to talk about it, man, because again, it's not often in horror, and maybe you guys disagree, but it's really not often in horror that we get what I consider to be phenomenal acting throughout the whole cast. Like, I don't think anyone is bad at their job here. And sometimes we watch these movies, like, they're fun for what they are, but I think of Wrong Turn, and I'm like, man, I don't hate Wrong Turn, but the acting in that and the acting in this are just two totally different spectrums to me. But I am excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So first off, I think this movie is great. And to be honest, with December 1st, 2021 is when we're recording this. At this point, this is the only one of Jordan Peele's movies that I've seen that I care for. And I think that it's very good. This thing was very deservingly nominated for 4 Academy Awards.
Best Picture.
Like Mike said, the cast is brilliant. Peele, I think, does an amazing job of throwing in that racial tension, and making a statement and really selling the moments without it being too much, without it beating people over the head with it, and in ways that some movies do, and honestly get it wrong a lot of times. This one gets it right. This is how you do it, in my opinion. I'd also like to say, while demons terrify me because we've talked about this and I think they're real, this is my actual worst nightmare that terrifies me more than anything. My honest to God biggest fear is being like a prisoner in my own body. I've said on here I suffer sometimes from sleep paralysis, and that's how it feels like that.
Yeah.
It's why I don't. That's why I don't feel like I ever have like the mental strength to ever be paralyzed. But anyway, I love the writing. Really appreciated how Peele, addressed the horror tropes in this as well. Like Mike kind of touched on, that there's only, I mean, well, hell, I mean, only one movie I can really think of off the top of my head where I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything differently. And this is one of those movies. Every time I was like, even thinking something, the character says it on the screen. He actually does everything that I would think that he should do. He addresses everything that may break that suspension of disbelief, that we talk about a lot. And I think that's brilliant.
Yep.
Now I will say it's a little slow in places, but I really did appreciate the character build up and the character development in this one. There's a little bit more, but I'll save it for my summary.
Hey, before you go, Nico, I just want to say, and we're going to talk about it throughout, but the idea that this movie had, if you took all the social commentary and the attack on horror tropes and all that out of this film, the idea of enslaving someone's body by putting my brain in there is terrifying and a genius idea for a horror film. But add to that the fact that there's a racial component where, you have this group of people that pretend to value another group of people, but they don't view them as human enough to keep them the way they are. They want to change them. They want to take my smarts and put it in your body that we think is superior. It's a really genius line to toe, and I think it's just a great script. Like, there's not anything I would change about this script.
Well, there's a lot of that, like in the Purge, or like in like Body Snatchers. But the thing that really sets it apart is that they're in the other body, but that person is in there too.
Yeah, they're a passenger.
That's what's so special about it. It's great.
Fantastic.
All right. Any more opening thoughts for jumping to the scene by scene?
Yeah. Also, this movie's fucking hilarious in some points. My man Rod is the man.
Oh yeah, I have that in my ending too. I just feel like Chris and Rod are just a believable friendship.
Yeah,
like I can hear like that real like everything that they like the stuff that Rod says to Chris. Like, I feel like is very real and
yes,
very well written.
Also, before you start, I'm sorry for ranting, but now I'm starting to remember a couple things I meant to write down. Man, Rod is needed in this film to break up some of the tension. Again, I said in my opening where you just never feel a sense of ease, even when the first opening, act of this film, you don't feel it at ease. And Rod adds a little bit of the right kind of comedy. I'm looking at you, Danny McBride. Rod adds the right kind of comedy to a horror film. It's well timed. It's well placed. It's well used. It's awesome. And again, looking at you, Danny McBride, there's a way to do it in a horror movie that works. And so I think this is definitely not, I got peanut butter on my penis. So I'm excited about that.
Well, and to speak to what Nico said, Chris and Rose to me are very believable couples too. There's just, and it's their acting that does it. It's
God,
amazing.
give her flowers. She's fantastic in this film. She's awesome. Golly.
You said it right though, Mike. It's well placed and well timed about the comedy. That's something Danny McBride definitely can learn in Halloween movies, anyways.
Yeah.
I know Dustin said that it wasn't a movie we wasn't really jonesing to do. I mean, I was definitely looking forward to it. I just feel like it's hard for me as a non-black man to give the right person. I'm just looking at this as a horror movie because I can't really speak on the racial part of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was kind of my vision was, we'll break down, we'll do what we do. We'll bring you the scene by scene and what we took away from it. We'll talk about the cinematography, the dialogue, the atmosphere, the typical things we do. But then we'll also, I plan to at least give you, from my perspective, how this movie can really make you realize some of the subtle racism that you probably don't even pick up on a day-to-day basis as a white person. Right. And just kind of some things that I've read about it and the symbolisms and whatnot, kind of bring you some of those as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ignore it when you're doing this film. You can't ignore it. It's a giant elephant in the room because that's what this movie is basically about. But as a standalone horror film, it's great. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it, man.
For sure. Let's get jumping into it. All right, the film starts with, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is Andre walking down the sidewalk at nighttime. He's on the phone telling the other person he feels like a sore thumb in this sketchy neighborhood. A car passes on the street and hits a U-turn. He checks his phone and notices the car pull up. He keeps walking and they keep following. He turns around and some guy grabs him from behind and puts him in a chokehold. He passes out and they stuff him in the trunk of the car. The screen says a Jordan Peele film, and we get a title card with opening credits with visuals of like the woods. And now we're in a nice apartment. Chris is shaving while Rose is at the bakery. Chris looks through the pictures on his camera, and Rose makes it to his place. He lets her in with a kiss. Chris is now packing up, and Rose asks him if he has everything he needs. He asks her if her parents know that he's black. He says he feels like it's something they might want to know. She plays it off sarcastically, and she says he's the first black guy she's dated, and her dad would have voted Obama again if he could have. They are not racist, she says. I wouldn't be bringing you there if they were. They're driving now, and she grabs his cigarette and throws it out the window. He calls Rod now, and Rod tells him he's in trouble for patting down an elderly lady through TSA. Chris tells him the dog can't have any human food. Rose and Rod talk now briefly. Rod tells Chris don't go to a white girl's parents' house, and Chris hangs up abruptly. A, a deer jumps out fast as fuck and hits their car. They're both in shock. They get out the car and assess the damage and now hear the deer groaning. Chris walks to the deer and stares at it. A cop is on the scene now, and Rose talks to him. The officer asks for Chris' license or, identification, and Rose asks why he wasn't driving. She says it's bullshit. Chris goes to hand him the ID, but the officer walks away when Rose keeps fighting him off. The cop says to get the headlight fixed and walks away. Rose and Chris drive again and make it to her parents' house. They drive past Walter, the groundskeeper. Missy and Dean come out and greet them. They seem excited to meet Chris. Walter stares on at them. Rose tells them they hit a deer. It frucked them out. Dean says the deer are taking over. Missy says they look wiped out, and Dean asks how long they've been dating. 4 months. 5 months, actually, Rose correcting him. Dean gives Chris a tour of the house now, shows him Missy's office and some family portraits. He shows Chris his dad's picture from the Olympics where Jesse Owens beat him. The basement is sealed off from mold, and we now meet Georgina, the maid. Dean takes Chris outside now. Total privacy, he says, as Walter looks at them. He explains why they have Walter and Georgina on staff. They took care of their parents. He now tells him personally he'd have voted Obama again if he could. All right, Brian, go ahead. That's the first two scenes I got.
Just a little fun fact right off the bat. This Run Rabbit Run song that's playing during the abduction scene. I mean, first of all, creepy as fuck. Like we've said before so many times that old classical record thing like that. It's just creepy as hell. But that was actually written by British composer Noel Gay, his birth name was Armitage. Obviously, a connection to the Armitage family in this film. But great open right off the bat. You're like, holy shit, okay, this is what we're going. Okay, all right. And this isn't the first time that I've seen Daniel Kaluuya. Like that was in Black Panther, but I love him. I think he's fantastic. Not only in this, he's a ridiculously fantastic actor in everything that I've seen him in. Again, I know it's the writing, but you empathize and you care for his character. I mean, and yeah, a lot of it is writing, but he has to be likable and he has to deliver those lines in a way that will entice those emotions from us. And he fucking kills it. And I kept trying to place Allison Williams, but I looked it up and I've never seen anything else that she's been in. And I racked my brain on this for a week since I watched it the last time. And it finally hit me. She looks to me just like Amanda Peet. And like that's why I can't. Every time I stared at her, I was like, "Oh shit, that's what it is." I finally got it. Anyway, that was pointless, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. Let me say right off the bat too, Rod, Lil Rel Howery, my favorite character in this movie. I know he's the comic relief, but I think he's just so well written. And that's the other thing. Like these characters are so well written, and the character development. And I'll contradict myself later probably and sound like an idiot, but the development's so good that you care about these people, you're invested. But like I said in my open, like part of it does drag, but you need that development. Like, so like again, like I said, I'm contradicting myself, but and I'm not sure if anything that you could cut anything that you don't need, because I'm not sure it works at all without all of it. So, anyway, I also want to point out that that's probably the best like car hitting something scene that I've ever seen in a movie. At least that I can think of. Like most of the time, you're watching that and expecting them to hit something, but it was so absolutely phenomenal to me the way that Peel did it. It lured you in, and then bam. But having Chris be so affected by it is so good here. You don't know why at this point if you haven't seen the movie, and but you can tell it does. And you also have just fucking so many other layers that you don't think about on the first watch. Like Rose isn't sticking up for him with the police officer; she's avoiding a fucking paper trail. Had the cop run both of their licenses, there's a paper trail. I think it's just such smart writing. I read somewhere that Peel went through like 200 drafts or something like that in the script, and you can tell because it's really smart and there's no holes really. And lastly, Bradley Whitford. I know we said this in Cabin in the Woods, but man, that guy's been in so many good movies and given so many great performances that I'm sure he doesn't want to hear that I will always remember him as Eric and Billy Madison. But
Well, technically, oh, sorry. Yeah, man, love the open. I love. Okay, so first time I ever saw this movie, I was in the theater, like Nico, and it was it was dark, and the way this very opening scene is shot, it's so dark that I could barely tell that it was gonna be Andre, the Keith Stanfield. Like I had a really hard time on first watch, realizing, this is somebody I should recognize at some point later in the film, which we're going to get to. But opening scene is right off the bat hits us with a kidnapping, which again, you should have been a dead giveaway, but I'm going to give credit to the writing and the acting to kind of making me forget about that scene. We get into the opening credits, very the Shining-esque with the blue writing and the forest and the trees and stuff. Then you get a little Childish Gambino, which I fucking love. Great soundtrack to this film, by the way, in general. And then Daniel Kaluuya, who I think does a phenomenal job as Chris. He's great. I think Allison Williams is great. They play off of each other really well. Their dialogue is believable to me. You get the scene where he talks about, do your parents know I'm black? And again, I can't relate to that plight, but I can empathize and say that's probably something that's probably something that goes through anyone's mind that's in an interracial relationship. And I'm sure, I can almost, guarantee talk to anybody. That's a concern. And you should, that's probably something that's pretty of a standard question by him. I like this car ride for two reasons. One, it looks like they're actually driving a car. And that is really hard to do in a film. We talked about Psycho a couple weeks ago, and I know that was 1960, but it looked like they were just kind of standing in a car and moving stuff by her. In this movie, it looks like they're actually driving a car down the road, and I think that's really well shot. I love the cinematography here on the back roads and all that. And I forgot to mention, I love this character of Rod. I already said it in my open, but he adds so much. Talks about Phil, or patting down the old lady, and that's a big deal. It's just so funny. It almost like, and I don't think he did all of his lines this way, but some of his has to be improvised. There's no way that some of the funny one-liners he has is scripted. They have to be improvised. I know the final scene had a lot of takes with him, but I'm sure some of these other ones did too, where he just kind of improvised funny stuff, and I think he's great, man. So you get the scene with the cop, but like you mentioned, Brian, just great writing, because it looks like she's defending him, kind of this woke white person, for lack of a better term. Why you doing it? But really, as we know, as the movie goes on, she was doing that so no one knew that Chris was out here. Because the minute they run his ID, somebody has some kind of identification that he's out here with her, because her license was ran already. And so I think that is is important. On first watch, you don't really even think about it, but when you go back and rewatch, it's very evident she had ulterior motives there. And I give credit to that character of Rose, the way it was written, because I fell for it the first time I watched it. I was convinced that this was all on the up and up. So I'm going to give the writing a lot of credit. And, I'm with you, Brian. Anytime I see Bradley Whitford, I think, well, technically, and then, like, I can't help but think Billy Madison. It's fantastic. I know he's in Cabin in the Woods, but when I watch Cabin in the Woods, I think of Billy Madison, so that's pretty fun too. But he's so good in this character. He plays it straight. It's really funny, and again, it's one of those uncomfortable situations because it's if you didn't know the way this movie ends up going, it's that uncomfortable, not accidental, but subtle racism that happens without even trying. Like the way he puts it in the dialogue is kind of like, I would have voted for Obama 3 times if I could have, and the way he kind of talks about Jesse Owens and all this other stuff, like just trying to focus the conversation around that instead of just talking to him like it's normal. Like, you're a person, I'm a person, you're dating my daughter, let's get to know each other. So, like, again, just a very awkward exchange. And Catherine Keener, I think, does a great job as Missy. I think that she looks dubious from the beginning to me, and I think that was kind of my tip off to, like, all right, something's up here. I don't know what's up, but something's up because I don't trust her as far as I can throw her. And I just think that, but everyone watching this film can relate to meeting a set of parents for the first time. And I think if you remove everything else, that's awkward enough as it is. And I think that is what makes this movie so good and so relatable to me. So that's all I had. A lot of good here, man. But, like Brian said, drags a little bit, but I love good character development. If the writing is smart, I think this writing is incredibly smart.
Yeah. So the opening scene, when you get Andre walking through the neighborhood, I mean, that's horror 101 right there. They do a great job of setting the atmosphere in the neighborhood. You've got what looks to be a nice neighborhood. Someone just walking down the street, minding their own business, and a car creepily following them. He turns around, starts walking the other way, and then he's kidnapped out of nowhere. They do a great job of that. And at that point, if you don't read about this movie before you watch it, you're like, oh shit, this is a movie about abductions, and that has nothing to do with race. It's like, oh shit, this black guy just got kidnapped. I think that's a great job of, when you watch it back the second time, you're like, oh shit, now I see what's coming. It's just a great way of great delivery there for that. When we get to meet Chris, great choice of soundtrack. Childish Gambino. The song is Redbone. The lyrics of that song line up perfectly with the overall message of this movie. Stay woke. They're gonna catch you sleeping. I think that's a great choice of song there. We get to meet Rose, who seems like this nice girl next door. I think there's some nice symbolism there as well, because ultimately she's his demise, and there is a feeling among certain black people that says that's what white women do. They trap black men, and that's, it's all a trap. So there's symbolism in that. When we're going down the road and she hits the deer. Now, this is something I didn't really pick up on. I didn't even give second thoughts to until after the fact. But, they hit the deer and they stop. There's a lot of symbolism in deer in this movie as well. But, they hit the deer. The cops ask for his ID, and you think, okay, this is Rose standing up, and she's doing what's right. She's standing up for him. She's not going to let him be racially profiled. He has no reason to, show this cop his ID. But when you watch it and you know how the movie unfolds, really what she's doing is covering her own tracks. She's eliminating a paper trail, because if the cop sees his ID, his name, and has his name and address and everything, then later when there's a missing persons report, that could tie her back to him. And so there's a couple ways to look at that part. We get to meet the parents and Dean. They seem, first of all, the symbolism with the deer. There's a metaphor there when he says there's too many of them. I say it's one less deer, when one dies. Very blatant message there, because you could say that, he's viewing the deer as how a lot of society views African Americans. And then, the quote about my dad would have voted for Obama a third term, and then he tells him, I would have voted for Obama a third term. I think that this movie does a good job of representing not your typical white racist, because the biggest threat to racial inequality, and not the biggest threat, because I mean blatant racism is pretty bad, but the ones who pretend to be your allies just because they're liberals. These white people are just as bad, and we find out later in this movie worse, because they think that by having some common ground there, I would have voted for Obama a third term, that makes everything okay. And and we see it when we get to the party scene as well. But it's just, there's a lot to unpack with this opening scene, and I think that for the overall message, it does a great job. But when you take a step back and just watch the movie for what it is, everything about it's brilliant. The acting is great, the dialogue is great, the lighting, the score, the atmosphere, everything about this set of scenes is great. And so so far we're off to a great start.
All right, the four are now outside drinking some tea, and they ask Chris about his parents and what they do. He says his mother passed when he was 11 in a hit and run, and dad wasn't around. They ask if Chris smokes because he's nervous, like you see like his hand tapping against the table. He's nervous tapping. Dean says he should let Missy perform hypnosis on him so he will quit smoking. Dean says it helped him quit smoking. I'm good, actually, Chris says. They're thrilled he's here for Rose's grandfather's party. Rose seems upset she wasn't told about this. We see Georgina space out as she listens on. They send her to bed as she almost spills tea. Jeremy shows up now. Later that night at dinner, Jeremy says Rose has a toenail collection in her jewelry box. He now tells Chris about Connor from junior year. Jeremy is upstairs hooking up with a girl, and Connor bangs on the bathroom door. Rose bit his tongue off during their first kiss, and he was bleeding everywhere. Missy leaves to get dessert. Dean asks Chris what sport he likes, and Jeremy asks if he likes MMA. Chris says he's not a fan, it's too brutal. Chris tells him he took judo when he was younger. Missy brings carrot cake in now. Jeremy now talks about jujitsu. He stands up, and Chris says he doesn't play fight with drunk dudes, as Missy stops Jeremy. Rose is brushing her teeth as Chris looks on the computer. She apologizes over what happened with Jeremy, and she apologized for her parents' behavior and the way they were talking. How are they different from the cop? As Chris kind of just nods and agrees. Chris says, I told you so. Rose apologizes as they kiss now. She tells him the party is so white. Chris is awake at night and he hears like a fly buzzing. We now hear the deer moaning again. Chris gets out of bed noticing a little cubby door as he heads downstairs to go smoke. He gets outside and sees Walter running full speed at him. He gets nervous as Walter hits like a right turn in front of him. He turns towards the house to see Georgina like adjusting her hair in the window creepily. He goes back inside and Missy stops him from the office, asking if she knows how dangerous smoking is. He goes into the office and sits in the chair. She asks if he's comfortable and if he wants to know how it works. She asks if he smokes in front of her daughter. He says he's going to quit. She now asks about his mother. Where were you when she died? Chris is uncomfortable and says, I don't want to talk about it, as he keeps clinking as she keeps clinking the spoon in her teacup. He was watching TV in the rain, he says. She tells him to find the TV. We see young Chris now. Where was your mom? She was coming home from work. He says he did nothing. I just sat there. He begins to cry now. We see him scratching the chair now as she asks if he believes it was his fault. How do you feel now? I can't move, he says. You're paralyzed just like the day you did nothing. Now sinking to the floor, and we see Chris free falling now into a dark place. He's now at the bottom looking up at Missy. Missy walks to the stoic Chris and says he's in the sunken place. And now Chris wakes up in bed, up in a panic. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about, in the last set of scenes, something else that you don't pick up on in the first watch is, with Dean and Missy and even Rose, calling smoking a bad habit with Chris because they don't want any damage done to the body. I mean, they don't want it any less viable. That's something, again, though, that you don't pick up until you've at least watched it two times. And so this is where you've really got to say, or where I said, okay, look, this movie is going in this direction with the hypnosis thing. So, like, whether you buy into the hypnotism or not, or hell, even if being hypnotized even really fucking works this way, I don't know. But these are the rules that they're establishing for this. So you either got to believe in it this way, or you have to kind of suspend your disbelief here. But this is where, like, really the turning point in that regard. And I think it's like, it's starting with this conversation here, this establishing the rules of this universe. And but also, can I say too, Jeremy's mustache, good God, it was fucking distracting. It was awful. But Caleb Landry does such a good job. I mean, as did everybody. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's hard to say anything about any acting in this one being anything but phenomenal. But Landry is so good here at just giving that whole vibe that, yeah, something's fucked up for sure. And I will say though, I almost wish that there was no violin music cue jump scare type thing for that jump scare with was it Georgina that walked across the hallway all weird while Chris was going outside. I think that was Georgina anyway. But this movie I think does such a good job of not resorting to that jump scare side of the genre. It just almost felt out of place a little bit to me. It almost would have been creepier to me without it. Almost like Signs does with the aliens when it shows them. But man, the running scene, obviously one of the most well-known things about this movie, sparking that whole Get Out challenge and everything. But man, it's so creepy and well done. And lastly, this this hypnotism scene, I can't say enough. Kahlua does such an amazing job in this scene. I'm not exaggerating when I say it's absolutely one of the best acted scenes, in my opinion, that I can think of in any movie. It's right up there. I can't say enough about his performance, the emotions that he portrays, how he kind of falls into this, not really even meaning to, not on his own accord anyway. Again, just absolutely terrifying to me to think of, like, being in this position and having no control over your own body, yet still aware. Fucking great set of scenes.
Yeah, man. Starting off with them drinking all the tea, uncomfortable conversation. Doesn't start out that way necessarily, but again, just putting myself in the shoes of someone meeting parents for the first time, they find out I smoke, they make it a really big deal, and that's super uncomfortable for anybody. And whether it be smoking or something like that, it's something everyone watching can relate to, I feel. Again, meeting someone's significant other's parents for the first time, you're kind of nervous anyway, and he obviously gets nervous, like a nervous tick, whether that he's nervous or whether he's fiending for a cigarette. Either way, it can play as both, and I think that's really well done as well. But that make a big deal, and this is the first mention of the hypnotism, and the first time you watch it, again, she's the only. To this point, she's the one I have a dubious feeling about. I already said it, but she's the one where I'm like, something is off with her. Not even necessarily the dad at this point. I probably should have been more aware, but like, she gives off this vibe, and again, she does a great job. The acting is phenomenal. But like, why does she insist on hypnotizing Chris? I know the smoking thing's a big deal, but again, when you rewatch it, makes total sense. Of course, she wants to hypnotize him. Of course, she wants to get him under some kind of spell, for lack of a better word. I think it's really good. The eye acting in this scene, the eyes from Chris and everyone, the facials that everyone is making is so good. Even when no dialogue is going on, there's something going on, and I think that's a really strong scene right there. Talk about meeting the brother, man. I'm gonna tell you. The first time I ever saw, or not the first time, a few times ago, so I watched this movie quite a bit. There's a show, and maybe you haven't seen it. It's got Drew Barrymore and Timothy Olyphant on Netflix, Santa Clarita Diet. Okay? And they have a daughter on that show, Liv Houston, or I don't think that's her real acting name. She looks like the identical twin of Jeremy. It is. I almost thought that she was playing him. That's how identical they look. And again, here's a fun fact. Caleb Landry Jones was Landry's drummer on Friday Night Lights. during, I believe, season 2 when they have the band thing going. She don't use jelly stuff. That's a little fun fact. I believe that was his first acting gig, if I'm not mistaken. It's a little bit of a fun fact there. I think he's great at giving off that creepy vibe. The MMA scene is super uncomfortable all the way around. The parents look like they're uncomfortable. Rose and Chris look super just, what do we do with this? This guy's drunk. And again, something super relatable where a lot of people have been in a situation where a drunken brother, sister, cousin, uncle, aunt, whatever, is making a scene at someone's first family outing, and you kind of have to not cover for them, but like, oh God, I'm so sorry. Like, and he tried to put an MMA move on him, but it was uncomfortable, and I loved it. It was so well acted. Obviously, Brian, you mentioned the Get Out challenge with the run that led to some great stuff. But I want to give Marcus Henderson credit for playing the character of Walter, an intimidating figure, big, strong, but when he's running at Chris, you're like, oh shit, what the hell is this about to be? And then he does this turn, and it's so well done, and it's so well shot. You're like, what's the deal with that? Like the first time you see it, like, what's up with that? And again, we know what it ends up being, but the first time you ever watch it, you're like, man, there's something going on with him and Georgina and all that stuff. And I forgot to mention her. Betty Gabriel does a phenomenal job. She just does such a good job of keeping a straight face. And then when she's almost having these lapses, and I mentioned the tea scene, where she's almost like lapsing into her former self, you see it. She does a great job getting that across on her face. And I think, golly, it's so good. The minute, she's pouring the tea, and then she just like has a mental break and forgets she's this other person. And then she snaps back into it, and everything's okay. And it's just so well presented. I love it. I think it's awesome. Not gonna lie, the first time I ever saw the running scene, I laughed. Like, again, it's very suspenseful and it's very good. But he's running with like these hands, things that we used to have to learn for football back in the day, like run like you're hammering something. Like, like that is proper ass form right there, my man. Good on you, Walter. But again, I just think it's so well acted. So, in the suspense, you mentioned the little violin thing. I don't know. I understand maybe not liking that, but I think it works. Like, I think it's just enough to where I think it's really good. Lastly, this scene where he's being hypnotized. First of all, powerful scene. Just, the trauma on Daniel Kaluuya's face does a phenomenal job. You feel awful for Chris. He's a kid. He doesn't know what to do. He's kind of frozen. And again, he's frozen here. He kind of froze when the thing happened with his mom, and now he's frozen again, and he's being hypnotized. And there's just so much interwoven symbolism here that I just think is great. Awesome job by Catherine Keener, kind of really, really just being a bitch about it, but also hypnotizing him at the same time. Like, golly, I just think it's a masterclass of two people dialogue going back and forth. It's awesome. I like the visuals of the sunken place, him falling into the chair. I think that was done really well. There's a deleted scene on the DVD that I think that they get a little carried away with the sunken place. I'm glad that they didn't go there with it. I think this is the perfect use. And imagine, Brian, you said it's your worst fear, but imagine just being trapped, watching your life happen in front of you, almost on like a little TV screen. That is absolutely terrifying.
No thanks.
And again, it's, they hinted at the hypnotism and then they ended up using it, and it comes into play way later in the film. And I just think it's so well done. Great set of scenes. Probably one of my favorite set of scenes in the movie.
We got more symbolism with tea in this. The tea is the theme throughout this movie with her, and that symbolizes, a high society and more refined things. And it's really a very subtle way of symbolizing, how like racial and classal superiority. It's associated with a higher form of a higher lifestyle. And then, we get some pretty, I don't know, it's not subtle. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but there's some racism, some coded racism. That's the word. Coded racism when Jeremy's talking to Jeremy's talking to Chris, when he says, when he tells him you would be a fucking beast that's
Yeah.
very coded racism because, a lot of times we forget that athletes are humans and we look at them as, not we, but society looks at them as athletes. Even, it's to go as far as to say that NBA owners and MLB owners and NFL owners, they don't treat their athletes, regardless of race, as people. They're tools and they're pawns, they're objects. And so there's some racism there. But when we get to Georgina being weird as shit, looking at herself in the mirror, we don't know exactly what's going on at this point. But when you see the ending of the movie and you find out what's going on with her and what's going on with Walter, it makes a lot of sense because as she's looking at herself, it's almost like she realizes, oh yeah, I'm not this person. Like I'm a lot younger. I look like this. And so she's like almost in a trance and enamored with her own reflection there. And then, we see Walter. So earlier when Dean is talking to Chris and he's telling him like, yeah, my grandfather or my dad rather was in the 36 Olympics and he lost to Jesse Owens. And we find out later that who Walter really is, that makes a lot of sense. He's running at night because he could never let that loss to a black man go. And so he's training still. Now that he's younger, he's got a stronger, more physical body. He's staying in shape, and that's makes a lot of sense why he's running. But I agree, the optics of seeing him running is like, oh shit. I think it's funny because in most instances, when one person's running like that, your natural instincts just take off and haul ass. So kudos to Chris for standing his ground there. But I would have ran. I'd be like, what the fuck's he running from? I got to get out of here. When we get to the scene where she's hypnotizing, that's actually pretty terrifying, regardless of
absolutely
race or anything, because he did not sign up for that. He didn't even realize what was happening until it was too late. She was soothing. She had the trigger that, once you hear the clink of the tea glass there, he's going to sink. And that's fucking terrifying to me because I don't want to be hypnotized. But, when we get to the sunken place, there's a lot of symbolism there as well. It's really what a certain portion of society tries to do to another portion of society. We're going to control you. You're going to do what we say. You're not going to have an individual voice. And no matter how you scream, no matter how much you fight, the system is going to keep you in this sunken place. You're not going to be able to rise up and overcome this. That's why I joked last week when I said we're doing Kanye West biopic, is because, a lot of people have said that when he was with the Kardashians, he was under their spell, and he's not being Kanye. He's this whitewashed version of Kanye. We know that not to really be the case because Kanye's fucking insane. But there's just a lot of symbolism throughout the whole movie, but more symbolism in this set of scenes. And I think the sunken place looked really good as well.
Yes, it did.
When she told him to sink, like he sunk, and just the optics, it was done with, practical and CG. And he was suspended by wires. Daniel Kaluuya was suspended by wires over a black background. And I thought it looked phenomenal. And then, he's looking up and he sees her, but she's a million miles away. It's just the optics of the sunken place are phenomenal. And it's just another strong set of scenes.
Hey, before you go, I got a question. So, like, the one thing I didn't understand, Marcus and Georgina, Marcus playing Walter. Walter and Georgina. But like, if they're really the grandpa and the grandma, right? So, but why does everybody they don't act like old people to me? They don't act like like an old person would. It's almost like they're zombies almost. Yeah. It's not like you would expect, I guess, an old person to.
They speak like them though, and I think that's important.
Some.
They do speak like them, but some of the confusion I had with that aspect as well is, when we get to see Andre again, and he's not Andre, right. Next set of scenes or whatever, he's acting as Andre would act. Georgina and Walter are not acting like I would hope that they're not treating their grandparents or their parents like just the help, because that's how they were treating them. Like absolutely, a groundskeeper and a maid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, if that's truly who they were supposed to be, they're actually family. Then why are they treating them like servants? Because and maybe it was just for optics and appearances,
Yeah.
so that Chris doesn't think anything of it. But
Right.
that's something I questioned as well.
Well, so I listened to some of the commentary from Peel on the DVD, and he kind of talks about how that used to be the parents' house, okay, before they got old. That family moves in, takes over the house, takes over the land, and they put the parents in Georgina and Walter, and so to keep them around, they kind of designated them to being the help, because otherwise, where do you put them? Maybe in a house by themselves, but to sell the image of these are the so even the dialogue where her dad kind of explains it away as they were helping out my parents and we just decided to keep them on because we like them or whatever, we treat them like family, all that stuff. So I get what you're saying, but I do think, kind of like you mentioned, Brian, it's just an appearance thing. And I think the parents are okay with it to a point, because there's eye contact with Missy and Georgina twice in this film where it's like, okay, you're in my house, bitch. Like, kind of like that. Like, they do that without ever actually saying anything. And to your point, they both kind of dress like old people. There's a scene later, I believe it's in the next set or it was a previous set of scenes, where like you catch Georgina looking at her hair, looking at her face in the window, and she has this really like old night sham on or whatever it's called. Like, definitely different vibes, at least. But like Dustin said, they kind of treat them like the help. I think that's for appearances. I really do.
I'll go ahead and say one of my fun facts now, because it's got to be this scene. Daniel Kaluuya was given the lead role on the spot after nailing his audition. Writer, co-producer, and director Jordan Peele said Kaluuya did about 5 takes of a key scene in which his character needs to cry, and each was so perfect that the single tear came down at the exact same time for each take. So that's got to be the scene that he's talking about where he got the role. And like Brian said, incredibly acted by Missy and Chris. Chris nailed it. That was incredible.
I was going to say, man, also, I would have never known he was British had I not seen Black Mirror. Would have never known that he was. So great job on the voice and dialect. It's phenomenal. Perfect.
Well, he does slip up a little in the next set of scenes. A little
a little bit. And even Jordan Peele points it out in the commentary, but he's like, I left it in because it was so well acted. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
All right. His cell phone beeps and it's unplugged as he notices Rose is in the shower. Chris is in the woods now taking pictures. He gets back to the house and sees Georgina upstairs. He zooms in on her and she swiftly looks at him. She's gone from the room now. We see Walter chopping wood now and Chris walks to him. Walter likes doing this work. Chris introduces himself and Walter says, Rose is lovely, isn't she? And Mike tweeted this earlier. One of a kind, top of the line, a real doggone keeper. He apologized.
Two-face slim waist with a big behind. I need a dime. That's top of the line. Oh, sorry, wrong thing.
Yeah, go ahead and cut that, Brian. We don't need that right now. He apologized for running right at him. He asked if it worked. You were in Miss Armitage's office for a long time. Walter gets back to work in his own business. Chris walks away confused. Chris tells Rose he thinks her mom hypnotized him. He says the thought of a cigarette makes him want to throw up. He had fucked up dreams in a hole and he couldn't move. He asks what's Walter's deal. He seems hostile. He thinks Walter likes Rose. She asks if he's fucking with her. Chris changes his tune and says it's not a big deal. Rose opens the curtain and we see several limos arrive as Walter opens their doors. Rose introduces Chris to the Greens. He asks if he plays golf. Gordon was a professional. He says he knows Tiger. He's the best he's ever seen. He asks to see Chris' form. Rose introduces Chris to another couple, and the woman feels on Chris's buff arm. She now asks if it's true, it being better. Another guy says black is in fashion, and Chris walks off to take pictures. Dean calls for Chris to come over to them. Chris now sees another black man there. He walks up to him saying, it's good to see another brother around here. He turns around awkwardly saying, of course. A woman walks up asking who Chris is. The man now introduces himself as Logan King. The woman sends Logan off now as they exchange an awkward handshake. What the fuck, Chris says as he sees Logan doing a spin move for the others in the group. Chris walks up on a blind man named Jim Hudson. He knows who Chris is and admires him. Chris knows him from Hudson Art Dealers. He compliments Chris's pictures that he takes. He tells Chris he used to dabble in picture taking until a genetic disease took his vision. Chris is back inside and goes upstairs. Everyone stops talking as soon as he goes up the stairs. Chris notices his phone unplugged again and it's dead. He plugs it in and has Rose come in the room. He tells her Georgina unplugged his phone again. He says maybe she doesn't like the fact I'm with you. Rose doesn't take him serious again. Chris calls Rod now. He says he hasn't seen a black man here that doesn't work for them. He now tells them he got hypnotized. Rod says fuck that. Chris is happy though because he quit smoking. It worked. Rod now says white people want sex slaves and brings up Jeffrey Dahmer. Rod jokes saying all the black people there are probably hypnotized. The mom did it and is fucking them all. Georgina walks in and apologizes for touching his belongings. She tells him how his phone got unplugged. He says he didn't want to seem like a snitch. I don't answer to anyone, she says. If there's too many white people, I get nervous, he says. Georgina goes blank. She smiles and cries, now laughing. Oh, no, 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 she says. Aren't you something? That's not my experience. The Armitages are so good to us. They treat us like family, she says, and walks out the room. This bitch is crazy, Chris says. All right, go ahead, Brian.
First off, I just wanted to point out this little writing moment that Jordan Peele gives you. It's like this realistic conversation between Chris and Rose where she's just saying to just smile, and he makes that joke about smiling. It feels real. I mean, and it's just, I thought that was, again, brilliant writing. But wow, that party, I mean, it's just super uncomfortable. I know Jordan Peele said that he kind of based that on some real experiences, but just wow. I mean, but like I said, there is a little slip up when Chris is talking to Jim Hudson. What Kaluuya's British accent kind of pops out. But by the way, Jim Hudson, I was like, Stephen Root is in this? Like Milton from Office Space. I mean, of course, other stuff too. And I think you guys are bringing up some other ones, but to me, he'll always be Milton to me.
Lenore.
No, sir. That's William Doe Treve.
Oh, that's what, dude. I can't even say his middle name. Dave Fontaine, whatever it is. I don't know. Lenore.
But I just want to praise the writing a little bit more. I don't have a whole lot on this set of scenes, but like again, like I talked about in my opening, the sense of realism. It's just right when I'm thinking, what the fuck? Chris says it on screen. Right when I'm thinking, oh shit, bitch is crazy. Boom, says it on screen. And that happens a ton in this. And again, Chris really does what you think as an audience, or what I would think he should do. And Rod is doing the same thing. He's basically us saying what we're thinking. And so I think that's very meta. It's at least being very aware of the tropes and kind of writing excuses for everything that you could possibly come up with. Lastly, just this conversation with Georgina, and you don't see it on the first viewing. You just think something's fucked up. But on the second viewing, the first time you're like, well, I was anyway. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? But the second viewing, you understand that's a little bit of the real her coming through. And so again, you've got to watch it more than once, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And this set of scenes is the perfect example. Chris noticing that, he's got, his phone unplugged after a night of being hypnotized. And again, he doesn't quite remember it. And then he goes and talks to Walter and he kind of reminds him. I like that because I feel like if he had because all we see sunken place, next thing we know, he wakes up in bed. And so I like that Walter kind of, he has again, I probably shouldn't have done the Yin Yang twins there, but and Mike Jones and all that. But look, man, great song, top of the line. Awesome quote. That's why I tweeted out earlier today. I just think it's funny. It's very well delivered. It's good. Rose, quite the catch, ain't she? Like, it's really, really good. I think it's good. And the look on Chris's face while Walter is talking is kind of like man, what the fuck is up with this guy? And I just love the acting there. Like I think it's very well done, very well delivered. And again, this whole party scene here, or the beginning of this party scene is it's great. It's uncomfortable. You get a lot of the stuff. You get somebody that's a he's meeting different people, and they're kind of, again, something that Dustin touched on earlier is that little bit of subtle racism. This is almost not subtle, where he thought, "Oh, I love Tiger. Tiger's my favorite," and all this other stuff. Like, come on, man! Like, just because Chris is black doesn't mean he likes Tiger Woods. Like, he might hate fucking Tiger Woods. I don't know. So it's just kind of one of those things that sometimes white people go out of their way to do, to see, and then you got the guy, where black is cool, black is in. And to me, that's something that this movie doesn't dig super deep into, but that is definitely a topic of discussion, cultural appropriation and how it's done and how it's portrayed on screen. And I like that they at least kind of mention that. The scene is super uncomfortable where this man's, wife is feeling up on Chris's arm, asking if he's better in bed. And this man is sitting there in a damn wheelchair. Come on, man. Super uncomfortable. Golly. And you could just, I love the way that the acting is portrayed here. I think it's great. Then you get my man Bill Dauterive. My man. He's not quite after Peggy Hill right now, thank God, because she's God, Peggy Hill's one of the worst characters ever. Anyway, that's a debate me and Dustin can have. Screw John Redcorn as well. But
Facts.
yeah. See, I knew we'd agree. Good shit. But I love the fact that they drop a little seed here. He's blind, and he admits to never having the eye for the art that Chris has. And I love that they've decided to drop that hint. And like Brian said, it's one of those you have to go back and watch to kind of pick up on that, and why later it makes more sense. Like, I just think it's really well laid out. I mean, they're kind of giving you this movie on a silver platter. You just got to know what to look for. I like that dialogue. It's really, really good. And lastly, Chris and Georgina's, dialogue scene here at the end is awesome because it's well acted by the actress's name, who I just said earlier, was Betty Gabriel. She does such a good job of encompassing almost two characters at once. She's clearly Missy's or Rod's mom, or Dean's mom, and
Rose. Yeah.
Well, it should be Rose's grandma, but yeah, same thing. Right. So she's clearly that, but she's also has that mental break when he says he's uncomfortable around white people, this many white people. He has this, this uneasy feeling, and no, like, it's so good. And I know they overdid it in the trailer a little bit, but man, it's awesome. The way they keep the camera on her face, it makes me super uncomfortable. And I just love the acting there. So a pretty good set of scenes. Not as good as the last set, but I do think we're starting to lay some groundwork that something is up here. Now, we don't quite know what's up the first time we see it, but it's very clear that something's about to go down.
Yeah, so this whole damn party is just so fucking uncomfortable to watch, because you can just feel how uncomfortable he is. First of all, like you guys mentioned, Mike, you said that he may hate Tiger Woods, but that's the problem that a lot of people do, is when you don't have anything in common with someone, you make assumptions and just try to relate them, but it comes across so cringy. Oh, Tiger Woods the best golfer. Who gives a shit? Like, just talk to the man. And then, you get the whole, is it true what they say about black men having the best sex, or is the sex different? Whatever she says. And then, black is fashion, all this. At first, there's a couple layers here. Number one, it's the obvious, we're not used to being around black people, especially new black people. So let's just try our best to have conversation and make you feel like we like you. But honestly, I'm uncomfortable, and it comes across real cringy. But then also, when you realize what's going on, why they're bringing in new black people to this clique. It's like, oh, so he's looking at him like, I'm a golfer. I could really use your athleticism, stereotype that African Americans are more athletic. Then, the stereotype about black guys and their packages. So it
Well,
seems like well, so about asking about the sex, is it better? Blah blah. It's just when you realize what they brought him here for, it's like okay, I get it. And the whole thing is so now, and you mentioned Georgina. So I want to mention how you said how well she did acting in that scene, Betty Gabriel. It really reminds me of another movie that came out this same year, James McAvoy in the movie Split. Like, just does such a great job of
yeah.
playing multiple characters at once. Split's another great movie that's worthy of a review. But I really picked up on that, especially since I've seen them both multiple times now, and I'm just thinking about the fact they came out the same year. Those two movies, those two characters rather, are linked to me, or linked together for me. But it's just the whole scene is so uncomfortable. I love Rod on the phone here. He's like, "Oh, fuck that! No, you got to get out." And Rod is the highlight of this movie. But he's right. It's funny too because he's right all along, and as outlandish as everything he's saying is, you come to find out he's right. It's really it's really ties the bow on the whole thing. It's really satisfactory at the end to find out that he was right all along. But overall, like I said, he just does a great job in this set of scenes of you feel uncomfortable no matter your race just watching what he's going through at this party. And if you can convey emotions through visual and audibles, you're doing a damn good job. And he really does. He nails it here.
All right, Chris walks back outside and Dean introduces him to other people there. Hiroki asks if being African American is a disadvantage or advantage in the modern world. Chris is flabbergasted and asks Logan to take the question as he walks up. Logan says the experience has been very good. Chris takes a picture of him and the flash from the phone triggers Logan. His nose bleeds. He runs at Chris saying, "Get out, get out." He grabs Chris crying and screaming, "Get the fuck out of here." Dean tells Chris and Rose it was a seizure. Missy and Logan walk out and he apologizes for what happened. Logan says he must leave now. "How about sparklers and bingo to lighten the mood?" Dean says. Rose says we're going to go on a walk. Chris tells Rose that it wasn't a seizure. Chris says it felt like he knew the guy who came out of him. Chris says her mom got in his head and he's thinking about shit he doesn't want to think about. He says he needs to go. "Without me?" she asks. Dean is now giving like a silent auction with Chris's picture in full display. Jim Hudson is the highest bidder. Chris brings up the night his mom got hit. She survived the initial hit, cold and alone on the side of the road. He was at home watching TV. He cries and she holds him. "You're all I got. I'm not going to leave without you," he says. She says, "Let's go home. This sucks. I'll make up something," she tells him. The two walk back to the house now as we see cars leaving. Jeremy plucks his ukulele as Georgina, Walter, Dean, and Missy stare at them awkwardly. They all go inside now. Chris sends the picture of Logan to Rod. Rod calls him and says, "That's Andre. They know him." Chris says he's different. "Sex slave," Rod yells. "You got to get out of there." And then his phone battery dies. Chris says, "We got to go now." She asks him to go get her bag. He packs up and looks in that little cubby door. He turns the light on and looks inside of a box. It's full of pictures of Rose with other black men. He now sees pictures of her with Logan, Walter, and Georgina. Chris is very suspicious now. He slams the door and she asks if he's ready. He asks for the keys, but she can't find them. They go downstairs and Jeremy blocks the door. Missy asks if they'd like tea. He asks for the keys again. Dean walks in now and asks Chris what is his purpose. He asks for the keys again. Dean gives off a spill on fire and Chris snaps, asking for the keys. Jeremy swings a lacrosse stick at Chris. Rose now reveals she has the keys and says she can't give them to him. Chris goes to run, but Missy taps a teacup and he collapses. Dean and Jeremy drag Chris downstairs as Chris falls back into the sunken place. "You are one of my favorites," Rose tells Chris. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Just a little fun fact right at the start of these scenes, when Chris is introduced, Yasuki Aoyama, who plays Hiroki Tanaka, the Japanese man at that party, is not actually an actor, but he's actually a noted karate master. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Also wanted to say that I love the side plot with Chris's mother that plays out throughout this whole thing. I almost, and I brought this up already once today, but I almost thought that I was going to get a flashback scene that finally showed you the whole thing, like in Sign, like from Signs with M. Night Shyamalan. Finding the after he hits his wife, Mel Gibson's wife, and that. Anyway, that's what I kind of thought I was going to get that scene. But it's still, even though you don't get it, it's still super. It's very emotionally powerful. It's so realistic. I mean, and just he portrays the fact that he has to live with that so well. You really empathize with him. But then you get that camera flash, and this is where finally that I'm like, okay, shit is starting to go down a little bit. I mean, shit, the silent auction. We were talking about letting you know what was going on without any dialogue. I mean, holy shit. Again, like I keep using this word, but it's brilliant fucking writing. And this is also where I want to use that analogy that we've used a lot on here, like where the movie is a roller coaster that's been going up and going up and going up and going up. And at this point, I thought, okay, well, this is where it's going to start going down. And honestly, at this point, I was ready for it to start going down. I was like, okay, like we need to start kicking some shit into gear here. And it delivered. I'm very glad that it did. But when he finds the pictures and you're like, holy shit, okay, well, she's in on it. But also, like in the back of my mind, the first time I saw this, I was like, well, there was some doubt there. Maybe they hypnotized her too. Maybe this is a red herring. So again, like, but the movie doesn't give you, Jordan Peele doesn't give you time to really ponder that, because like he just hits you with all this damn tension that, yeah, Peele brings it here, but it's really Daniel that just plays this so fucking good here. And hell, even Allison, like giving you doubt, like with the crying when she's like, well, what's going on? Like just right up until she pulls those fucking keys out. And man, I honestly would have loved to have seen this in the theater. Maybe Nico can talk to this if it was a big crowd. But I just feel like that the whole audience right there would have been like, oh, fuck. Like as soon as that reveal was put out there. That's definitely an experience I would have liked to have seen in the theater. But that's all I had on the set.
I can tell you straight up, I had a lot of, I knew it. I fucking knew it. So I had a lot of that. I didn't know it. But again, I'm coming at it from a different viewpoint. So I'm like, man, that was really good, I thought. But yeah, so first of all, it doesn't matter who you are. You introduced me to this many people at one time. I'm fucking nervous. I'm pissing down my leg. That's just how this goes. Especially if it's my significant other's dad. That's a lot of stuff going on. So again, some more super uncomfortable dialogue where he asks, if it's an advantage or disadvantage being black and today's America. And he asked Andre to come on over and, he can't really speak to it, obviously. So like you said, Brian, I love that this flash is kind of the turning point of this film, because it leads us to say, okay, first of all, we clearly recognize this guy as someone we already saw. Now there's a flash kind of sets him off, makes him go crazy, which this is the one time, and normally I hate it unless it's done.
Just to jump in there, I personally, even both times the second time I was watching for it, I still never really got a clear look at him in that opening scene. So I never knew that was the same person.
He's got a goatee. He's got like a really like kind of bushy goatee in the opening scene. So it is hard to make out for sure.
It was dark.
Yeah. And was very well lit, really dark to kind of make you wonder, at least I think. But I the flash kind of sets him off, and you're automatically thinking, okay, something's going on here. And I really like, obviously we know something's up anyway, because we saw the beginning of the film, but now we're kind of, what have they done to this guy? Why does the flash set him off and all this other stuff? And, normally I don't like when within the dialogue, the name of the movie is said, but I think it's done really well here, not for laughs. So I'm okay with the get out. Like, I think that's done really well. It's not too on the nose. I like that. So Obviously, I really look, Brian. You touched on something that I think is really important to this film, at least from my viewing standpoint. Up to this point, I am fully behind Chris and Rose. I don't view her, at least the first time, as dubious. I think she's by his side. It's so well written and so well acted. I think Allison Williams portrays a very sympathetic character in this point of view to me because I can tell she's giving the point across that she genuinely cares about Chris and him being uncomfortable. They had the little bit of a tussle when they kind of walk off on their own and they're talking. And they talk about his mom and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, back at the house, they're selling off Chris. They call it bingo, but they only call it bingo because he holds up the card with bingo on it. And I think that's really, man, so well written to me. I've said that a lot in this review, but there's a reason for it because it is just so great as far as the script goes. Love that. And you get back here and Jeremy, who I forgot about a little bit because they cut a bigger scene with him that had him playing badminton and stuff. I think I would have remembered him a little more. But here he is. He's got the ukulele and that chord, that strumming or the chord he's strumming is perfect. It's creepy. And the whole thing with him and Chris is again uncomfortable because this is to me the point of the movie where I think things are about to turn and it's going to be Chris and Rose taking on the family. Fuck these guys. And she's at the minute she says, I can't find the keys. She starts looking for the keys. I'm like, no, fuck, no, don't do it. I'm talking about the first time I ever saw it. I'm like, oh no, they can't do it. And they do. It's just, I can't give you the keys, right, babe? Oh, it's not some big like, oh, here's this reveal. It's so subtle. And Chris realized that one, he already saw the pictures of all the other guys that she brought. So that's like okay, well, you lied to me about that. So what else are you capable of? But just that, you're still kind of holding out hope that this is the one and it's not. And I think it's so well done. It's just a complete, the first time I ever saw it, just a complete like slap in my face. Like, oh man, the whole family is in on it. Chris is absolutely fucked. And the line that you were one of my favorites is almost the most, honestly, Rose is the most evil in this film to me because basically she's getting the bait and setting all these people up. And that was one of my favorites. Yeah, she probably says that about everybody. So I really like this set of scenes because it sets up my favorite set of scenes in this film.
Yeah, so, when we get back out to the party and they ask him, as a black man, do you feel like you've had more disadvantages or more advantages? That is such a loaded fucking question to ask him. Because number one, they've already got a perception in their mind. So if he says, I feel like I've been in a disadvantage, then he's not going to change their mind. This is a lose-lose situation. Because if he says, I feel like I've had advantages, right, then he's only confirming what they already have perceived in their minds. So that's just such a fuck situation that I know a lot of people have found themselves in because, people get very comfortable asking questions they have no business asking when they're in crowds that they know they can get away with asking those questions.
Right. And this is a post-Obama world, and I think Peele kind of touched on that being like a big, guess racism's gone now. No, not really.
Yeah. And now I've got some more on that in just a second. But, then we get to the auction and, they're using the bingo cards. It is very symbolic that everybody that's bidding is holding up a card that already has bingo on it because that is just a symbol of their privilege. They're already winners because here they are, all these white people who have all these advantages, and they're the ones doing the bidding and controlling everything. Not to mention the very direct correlation between auctioning off black people and slave auctions. I love the scene when he sends the picture, and they realize, oh shit, that's Andre. I think that was a great job from Rod and Chris there. I love that phone call. Rod is he brings such a needed uh, breath of fresh air and comic relief to this movie, because if you don't have Rod, if you have the person playing, if you have the character of Rod just being a very straightforward person without the comic relief, this is a dark fucking movie that is just not, it's very uncomfortable to watch. So like you guys said earlier, the comic relief is very tastefully and well placed in this movie. Then he goes on and finds the pictures of all the black guys, all of her ex quote unquote boyfriends. In my mind, I'm leaving right then. I'm not waiting for her. I'm not telling her we got to go right now. I'm out the window or some shit. And I'm actually, matter of fact, I'm calling Rod right then, be like, hey, this is my address. If anything happens, you know where I'm at. Go ahead and come get me now. And I'm, booking it down the road.
I almost think
but she
that
walks
was
in during
planned.
that scene and
Yeah, I almost think that might have been the plan, like with him. I almost think that he wanted to just fucking get out of there, but didn't want to let on to her. He just wanted to get the keys out of her hands, and then probably he was out. I don't think he wanted to like let on to her. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got that as well. When if that's his plan, he just wants to get out of there, but he's not going to make it. Obviously, he knows. Then when she's like, "Oh, I got to find the keys. I got to find the keys," I was like, "Here, baby, I'll find the keys. Let's just go." And I grab the purse out of her hand, and I'm out the door. But this shit's fucking terrifying when he gets downstairs, because he wants to leave, but he's stuck. And that's symbolic as well. A lot of people want out of their situation, but they're stuck due to they don't have they literally don't have the power to leave. They don't have the vehicle to get out. But it's so eerie because you walk down and you've got Dean just kind of pacing through one room. This is everybody. It almost feels like everybody is entranced because it's so eerie when he's like, "Babe, we got to go." And she's like, "Yeah, I just can't find the keys." Like, even that just seems weird. It's almost like Missy has everyone hypnotized to a certain extent until Jeremy comes in swinging his fucking lacrosse thing. But and then the line, you were one of my favorites. That is so fucked up because like I said, when Jeremy said you'd be a fucking beast, it's like he's objectified as a black person. He's not a person. You're not one of my favorite boyfriends I've ever had. You're one of my favorite ones. It's just very humanizing way to phrase that. But back to what I was saying earlier about how this is what you said, this is a post-Obama world, and so everybody's like, oh, racism's gone. Well, a lot of the ignorant mindset in the country is, oh, well, once all these old racist politicians die and all these old racist white people die, the racism will be gone. No, you see it right here with Rose. The apple doesn't fall far. Once you realize that she's in on this shit, racism is not going anywhere. The younger generations are just as racist, if not more racist, than the older generations. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and this does a good job of showing that metaphor.
All right, we see Rod now, and he tries to call Chris to no answer. Rod goes to his apartment and gets the dog some food. Another failed call attempt. Rod looks up Andre on the internet. He reads how he's been missing. We see Chris strapped to a chair downstairs. He wakes up trying to break out of the straps on his arms. He bites the straps now, and the TV in front of him turns on. It's Roman Armitage. He says there's no need to worry. You've been chosen because of your physical advantages. With your gifts and our determination, we can be perfect. We learn about Coagula now. He says we offer this service to the members of our group. The teacup is on the screen now, and Chris passes out. Rod is in a detective's office now and tells her about Chris has been missing for 2 days. Rod shows her the picture of Andre. He's been missing for 6 months, and he isn't acting right. He's dressed different and with a white woman twice his age. He tells her they've been abducting black people, brainwashing them, and using them as sex slaves and using them for work. She has 2 other detectives come in. He tells his story again, and they all laugh at Rod. White girls get you every time, she tells Rod as they all laugh. Rod calls Rose now. She tells him he left 2 days ago. He got paranoid and left. She pretends to act concerned. He asks her what cab company did he use. She doesn't know for sure. He says she's lying. That TSA in him is tingling. He records her call now. He asks her about Chris being hypnotized. She says to stop. She says there's something between us. She says he would look at her and wants to fuck her. Rod is snapping on her now and hangs up. Then he says that she's a genius. Chris wakes up again and we see Jim Hudson on the TV. He's there to answer any questions. He explains the process. He tells him you won't be gone completely. A sliver of you will remain. Your existence will be as a passenger. Chris asks why black people. Jim says some people want to change. They want to be cooler, stronger, faster. Jim says he just wants his eye. I want those things you see through. Chris now analyzes the cotton from the armrest. The TV comes on with a teacup on screen. He passes out instantly. We see Jim prep for surgery. Jeremy brings him his tools to cut Jim's head open. Jeremy pushes a wheelchair into the room with Chris. He unstraps his hands and feet. Chris now grabs a wooden ball, I guess that's what it is, and bludgeons Jeremy in the head twice, knocking him out. He removes the cotton from his ears now. He looks at the mounted book on the wall. Dean removes Jim's skull now and calls for Jeremy. Chris now rams the deer antlers into Dean's chest and throat, killing him. He walks away and hears Georgina singing. She panics when she sees him running away. Chris grabs his phone and sees Missy. She runs for the teacup, but he shatters it. Chris is stabbed in the hand by Missy with a letter opener, but he turns his hand around and stabs her in the face with it. And the next little bit is the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
So just a little fun fact, in the scenes where Chris and Rod are actually talking to each other on the phone, the actors were actually using the phone, but they were talking to Jordan Peele on the other end. I have not seen the bloopers from this, but just knowing how funny Jordan Peele is, I can imagine that he was probably fucking with him on the other end a little bit and making him laugh. If I I would have loved to see the bloopers on that. And I'm not real sure though what I think about the whole video on the old TV. I do think that they could have maybe given us a little better method for that exposition dump there. I'm not real sure off the top of my head what they could have maybe done differently, but to me, I was just kind of like, that seems a little, I don't know, out of place, just kind of odd, I guess. But maybe my favorite scene in the entire movie is Rod talking to Rose and then putting her on mute and saying, "This motherfucker is lying." I don't know, it cracked my ass up for some reason. And holy shit, I was honestly thinking up to this point, man, I've got him. I've got Jordan Peele because I've got a plot hole right here with Rod. And I thought to myself, all right, well, if she's covering her tracks so much, like, what are they going to do about Rod? But then like she hits him with that whole, I know you think about fucking me, Rod. And then I was like, oh, I mean, that's just how my thought process was. At that point, I was like, oh shit, Jordan Peele and your fucking 200 rewrites. I don't know why I doubted you. No plot holes. And just the shot, and I got a little bit more in my closing on my least favorite kill too, but the shot of the procedure, seeing him cut open Jim Hudson's head, I thought, there was one thing like seeing it, which I thought was great effects, but seeing the shot where it's shot through Dean's glasses, I thought was fantastic. I thought that was an amazing shot. And, lastly, just again, super poetic with Jeremy killing Dean with the mounted deer head after he said what he did at the beginning of the movie about how he hates deer.
Yep.
And, it might've been a euphemism for other stuff, but anyway, that didn't get past me there for that, but go ahead. That's all I had.
Yeah, you can also see somebody die via antlers in Silent Night, Deadly Night, which you can find a review at don'tgooutthere.com.
True.
Anyway, man, this is where the movie really starts to kick up for me, and I enjoy that we bring back the spoon, and that again, she got him. She set this trap earlier, hypnotized the spoon and everything else, and you could tell that everyone kind of thinks Jeremy's a fuck up, because he's damaging what they think is a perfect body and a vessel. And I like that he's kind of the, outcast a little bit, but he still has a job to do. I like all this stuff in the chair, in the room. He kind of brings back that idea that Chris kind of closet stuff, picks at stuff, like he did at his bed, since his mom died. It's a really good callback, I think, and he does it to this chair, and I love that and how that comes into play, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But I like that we still have Rod, because in a lot of other horror movies, you would almost forget about Rod. You would almost not really, not that you wouldn't remember him, but he wouldn't be such a viable character. And yet he wants to know what happens to his friend. And this dialogue where she's talking to him and talking about, oh, you want to fuck me and all this other stuff. I just love that Rod is so adamantly like, bitch, I don't want to fuck you. Oh, nasty ass, or whatever. But I love that he's like, no, fuck this. Where's my friend? Like, I love all that. Really good. And I love the switch, or the flip switch, that you get with Rose here. She went from being very likable to just being almost a psychopath. The way her movements, her facial expressions are different, like completely different person than what we've got to know this whole movie. And that really comes into play in the last set of scenes. I like this stuff in front of the old TV set. I think it kind of lets me know it's not too much of an exposition dump to me. Kind of explains what's going on. You get Bill Dauterive again, and he kind of explains, hey, I'm going to be here. You're going to be here too. Hooray. But you're going to be kind of a backseat rider. Like, I think that's just like, it's not going to be so bad, even though it's going to be fucking terrible, as we've seen through Walter and Georgina. I'll say this. It was not lost on me the first time I saw it, and it's definitely in there for a reason, that my man picked and picked and picked at this chair until some cotton came out, and plugged his ears with cotton so he wouldn't be hypnotized. So picking cotton saved Chris's life. That was not lost on me. Jordan Peele pretty much confirmed it in the commentary, and I think that was very well done, because that's what saved him. First of all, being hit in the back of the head with a bocce ball probably sucks ass. So I want to point that out now. But I love this kill of Dean. I just think the antlers kill, with all the symbolism we've already gotten, it's great. And first of all, there's pretty much not one person I wanted to see die more than him. So that was a really nice way to meet the end. Again, you don't get a kill until an hour and 20 something minutes into this film, but it was worth it. I think it's great. Love that kill a lot. And then finally, you get to see the death of Missy. And I think, I would have liked to see a little bit something else there, but I'm glad she's gone, because if there was a number 2 of who I wanted to see die more, it was definitely her, because I kind of had my finger on her that there was something rotten there from the very beginning. But I just love the acting in this set of scenes. Again, you get some more of the tears from Chris, and I think it's, just the facial expressions in this set of scenes. And look, he's basically in a chair this entire set of scenes until he gets out of it. And I think it's a really well acted set of scenes, which we've said a million times. So no surprise there.
Yeah. We got more symbolism here with the deer, with, he talked about earlier how one more dead deer is, there's one less of them in the world or whatever. And then as he's got Chris strapped to this chair, metaphorically mounted, he's got a mounted deer up on the wall there. And so obviously symbolism there. The cotton, I thought it was very brilliant that he peeled the chair, and the key to his escape was getting out. Key and peel, huh? Anyone? I did love the irony of
Very good.
The deer.
Very good.
Very good. Hopefully there's a root of David Arquette with those two. Come on, make it happen.
I don't have one, actually. But I did love the irony of the death by deer. And the reason for that, so black buck is actually a derogatory term used towards African American and post-Reconstruction American. And black buck was used towards, in particular, black men who absolutely refused to bend to the law of white authority. So when you think about what Dean was trying to do to Chris. He was trying to get him to bend to his authority, and then he used the buck literally to kill him. Like that is metaphor 101 right there. That is beautiful. But this set of scenes is just very intense. It does a great job. Like you guys said, like you said, Mike, we don't get our first kill until an hour and I think 24 minutes into the movie. But my God, is it worth it? Because it's all been a build, and the blow off from here, it's not drawn out. It's quick. You got a lot going on, a lot of action. The payoff is good. So this set of scenes does a great job of setting that up. And also, what a fucking badass, man. Taking a knife right through the hand and not even letting it phase you. Holy shit. That would have probably, I'd been like, all right, yeah, you're right. I'm done. But he took that blade right through his hand and still killed her. But overall, just another great set of scenes that does a great job of setting you up for the finale.
All right, and like I said, here's the finale. He walks away now and goes to walk out the door, but Jeremy grabs him from behind in a chokehold. He tries to open the door, but Jeremy kicks it shut. He tries it again and tries to kick the door shut, but Chris stabs his leg with the letter opener. He kicks him to the ground and stomps his head in. We see Rose eating dry Fruit Loops in an all-white suit, drinking milk separately, while surfing the web for her next victim. Chris gets in the car and drives off. He calls 911 and runs into Georgina. He gets a flashback of his younger self and goes to pick her up and put her in the car with him. Rose comes outside with a rifle. He drives away and she wakes up. You ruined my house, and he wrecks into a tree. Georgina is dead. Rose shoots at him now. Chris runs away, but Walter chases after him and tackles him. He tries to crush his head and gouge his eyes, but Chris flashes the camera in his eyes. He turns around and gets the gun from Rose. Let me do it, he asks. He shoots Rose in the stomach area. He now shoots himself in the head, killing himself. Rose is still alive and reaches for the rifle. Chris grabs it and is on top of her. She caresses his face and apologizes, saying she loves him. He now chokes her as a cop car shows up with flashing lights. She calls out for help, and he puts his hands in the air with a really defeated look on his face. However, it's Rod from TSA. Chris gets in the car with Rod and he says, I told you not to go into the house. He asks how he found him. I'm from TS motherfucking A. We handle shit. That's what we do. Consider this handled. They drive off as we see Rose clinging to life, then dies. They drive off and we see Get Out on the screen, and then end credits roll. All right, go ahead, Brian.
I've got to say, him killing Jeremy was definitely the most satisfying to me of any death. I do have to suspend disbelief, though, that his ass didn't have a concussion, but okay. I do love how we aren't getting this big ass quote boss fight, like video games almost. Like we're getting this realistic fights for the most part that we don't see much in movies. I mean, we don't get this long drawn out 3 to 4 minute battle. It's just realistic fights. And again, I know it's easy to watch this and say, get the fuck out of there. Like, don't help Georgiana. But the fact that we've built this up the entire time with his mom, it's explained and you understand really why he has that motivation to want to save her. And so again, if you're in his shoes with those experiences, you'd probably do the same thing. Well, I would, but Chris just leaving her to die the same way that Chris's mother died, lying on the road, not finishing her off. I thought it was a very satisfying ending. I know there was a different ending where the police show up, and I love that you think that you're getting that ending. And I have to say, and I know we got a question about that, but I'll go ahead here and just kind of say my piece on it now. Part of me at first, when I read about that alternate ending, was like, oh, okay, like that actually sounds legit. I love an ending like that where it's not a happy ending. But after being teased with it here, no way would I want it. Like it's almost like The Strangers to me. Like after all the shit, like I was just so disappointed when we didn't get a somewhat happy ending. Spoiler alert if you hadn't seen that movie. But I'm very glad that we got the satisfaction of that with this ending. I just don't think to me that we needed to end. And this was the only bit of humor that I thought was that was too much to me. I don't think we needed to end on the Rod joke about not going in the house. Like after everything, I didn't feel like we needed that, and to me, it was a little bit out of place. But that's all I have.
God, it was so satisfying to watch Chris, freaking Michael Myers, Jeremy's head. It's awesome. It's again, it's off screen, so I won't call it my favorite kill, but it was very satisfying. So I'm like you, Brian. Of course. Okay, so he gets in the car and he's off. Very smart. He takes their car. First of all, let me back up. What? I hope it's no one on this show. So I'm very sorry if you guys take offense. But what fucking psychopath puts the fucking milk in a cup and the cereal in a different? No, mix it together. But symbolism. Keep the white milk separate from the bowl full of colorful things. I think that's on the nose. So I can appreciate that. But anyway, so
Catch that.
Hey, about that, Jordan Peele actually said that really wasn't the message he was going
yeah,
for.
I know. Yeah,
He said he was just doing it just to portray her as just like a even bigger psychopath for that.
right.
Okay, good. I was
And
like,
that's how I took it originally.
So,
So, well, I mean, that's what
I mean,
that's
he
what
did. He said he
is.
didn't not acknowledge that wasn't true,
Right.
but he said mostly it was just to make her look like more of a psychopath.
Right. I watched.
Which
Is that
he is.
Vanity? Yeah. Is that Vanity Fair that he did that
Yeah, where
fan
he
theory
read off
video?
the
Yeah.
Reddit video.
Yeah. So yeah. So back in the car, I also was like, I want to hit you in the face for stopping and helping Georgiana, but it makes sense because he's wanting to kind of save his fellow person here. Maybe there's some kind of switcheroo or whatever. He kind of stopped to check on the deer because he values life, and so now he's stopping to check on her. And of course, that doesn't work out super well for him. They crash the car. Georgiana dies. We kind of put it all together that that's Rose's grandma. And, here comes Walter after, Chris is alive. And you really do think, or the first time I ever saw it, you really do think, man, is he like, because Walter's big and strong as fuck. Is he about to put Chris away here? I love that Chris brought back the Flash. That's so smart. It's already happened once, and he was thinking on his feet. Chris is a smart horror movie character, which I really appreciate. He does not do a lot of dumb things to me, and I think that's good in the writing. He uses the camera again, kind of shakes Walter of oh man, I'm trapped inside this body. So shoots Rose in the gut. Shoots himself because he doesn't want to live that way anymore, and he has his original thought process there. He's like, fuck this. So he shoots himself. Really, really like that. I will say, while it's not dumb, because again, I just called him a smart character, I would have made sure that Rose died here. Like, I really would have gone all out. But it's, Brian, you talked about the original ending. So glad they didn't go that direction, because that one is too real. I mean, it's real. That's how it probably would have ended in real life. But it's so golly, it's dark, and I appreciate Jordan Peele making this kind of a heroic tale in a way where Rod shows up instead. I think that's great. And now, I again would have made sure Rose was dead because screw her. But obviously, she probably dies because she had a big gunshot to the stomach and probably bleeds out to death. They leave her there. So I'm on a little bit of a disagreement with you, Brian. I like the comedy there because we just had such this dark ride roller coaster for the last probably 35 minutes or so. And to have Rod come back around and say, told you not to go in the house, and you get the DVD, and they just do that scene a bunch of times, and until they get the line right. He like there's there's a blooper reel there where he just inserts different improvised comedy that I think is really funny. But yeah, man, I like the ending a lot. I'm glad we got a happier ending than what was originally planned, because again, this is just me. Like, I really wouldn't have wanted to see that bleak of an ending. Again, would have been more realistic, but I appreciate getting a little bit of a happy end and Chris getting out of there, not unscathed, but at least he's alive.
Yeah, I think the ending's brilliant. I think that there's some symbolism there. He's escaping. He's getting out finally, and he hits Georgina with the car. Call back to the beginning. On the way in, he hits a deer. On the way out, he hits a metaphorical deer, and he has sympathy for it. He's wanting to help her. He can't just leave her like this. So he knows this. She's not really Georgina. She's not really the grandmother. Like, this is a black woman. I need to protect her. I need to get her out of here. Maybe I can save her. And then, we get with Walter. We get some more symbolism there. He's running him down. I love, like you said, I love the quick thinking. Let me use the flash to get him out. I question Rose, though. Would she have given him the gun? Even if she didn't know about the flash, I doubt that she would have given him the gun. But whatever. I hated that he shot her in the stomach. As soon as he shot, the first time I saw it, I was like, why the hell you shoot her in the stomach? Why you shoot her like that? Blow this bitch's head off. I also hate that he killed himself. I was like, damn, man, maybe there's help out there for you. But, we get the struggle, and they're down on the ground.
You're just a ding-ling-ling on a teacup away from being stuck right back in there. So after living all those years like that, I can definitely get it.
That's true. I understand. Yeah. I'm not saying I hated that Jordan Peele killed him off. I'm saying I hate that Grandpa Walter, whatever his name is, killed himself. As a person, not a character. The blue lights, man, this was brilliantly shot. I love how we don't see the car pull up. We see the blue lights reflecting on the face. We don't see what kind of car it is. We just see Chris put his hands up because, with all the unarmed black citizens that are killed by police, that's just a natural reaction for most is, let me put my hands up, don't shoot. And then you get the natural privilege, showing through for Rose, where she knows that she's in the wrong, but she also knows that she's a white woman. It's going to look like she's in the right no matter what. She sees sirens. They're on my side automatically. Help me. She's asking the cop, who she thinks is a cop, for help, and she just assumes that she's going to be okay. And then I love the feel good ending. So I'll go ahead and answer the question as well. I love that we don't go the other way. I love that we don't see an actual cop pulling up and arresting Chris or shooting Chris or whatever have you.
Yep.
I love the fact that we get a feel good ending here because, like you said, this has been such a dark ride already, and it's nice to see him come away with a victory. Because a lot of times in real life that wouldn't be the case, so it's nice to see him get one here. And I love the job that Jordan Peele does of inserting more Rod humor at the end to bookend this movie, this brilliant movie. He sends us out on a high note, so we're feeling good, but we also get to laugh on the way out the theater. We get to laugh as we turn off the TV. And so just a great job of using Rod to his fullest potential. It's also funny that they're, best friends, but this is the only screen time they share the entire movie is it's the very last scene. But yeah, I thought it was a fantastic ending to a fantastic movie.
If there's anything we should learn from this movie, it's bros before. Never mind. All right, let's jump into fan questions on social media. Just kidding, ladies. Since Brian and Dustin have already kind of answered this, I'll go ahead and ask us, Mike, from Shan on Twitter. Do you like the ending that Jordan Peele went with, or do you think his original ending, where Chris was arrested and jailed, being suspected of murder, would have been better? Test audiences didn't like the original ending. What do you think?
I'll take the happier ending as well.
Yeah, this movie needed the happy ending. I feel like I would have been like, "What the fuck, man?" He's like, he went through all this and he still lost at the end. We'll knock out Facebook real quick. Kevin Potoff didn't like my movie last week and didn't like Dustin's this week. I don't know if Kevin likes any movies. Had high hopes for this one. Unfortunately, was let down, just like his take on Candyman. But to be fair, that really wasn't his Candyman. It was just like I think he was just a producer on that one.
Yeah, that was Nia. By the way, that's Nia Acosta's Candyman. Let's clear that up.
That's right. Sean Irwin, don't have anything on this one. Just a good movie. All right, I agree.
Sean with a good take. Okay.
Hey.
All right, Sean.
I'm changing my score right now. Sorry.
Jman5765 on Instagram. Clayton J, big fan of the show. Can't wait to listen to this one. Hey, Dustin, solid 9.5 for me with the heart eye emojis.
There we
Missy
go.
Hutchison, I love the best friend in this movie. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah.
And this was a really good comment from Elbow.Tyler. The scene of the wood chopper guy rushing Chris from out of the dark was very scary. One of the things I thought was cool about this one was how the friend that works at the airport seemed like a minor character at first, but later on he almost becomes the lead. The one hang up for me was how long it took Chris to decide it was time to go. Amen, brother. I'd have been way the hell out of there way quicker. That's just me, though. Y'all want to jump into fun facts? Anybody want to go first?
I kind of said all the ones I have, so go ahead.
Go ahead, Dustin.
I've got
I'll go
a few.
after you.
So regarding the meaning of the sunken place, Jordan Peele said the sunken place means we're marginalized. No matter how hard we scream, the system silences us. So that's what I was touching on early. I thought this one was interesting. Eddie Murphy was originally chosen to play Chris, but Jordan Peele changed his mind after it decided he was too old for the role. And also Eddie Murphy's, I think it was the Delirious stand-up was kind of some of the inspiration behind this because, in it, Eddie Murphy references multiple horror movies and said that they don't do what they should do. They don't get out. And so that was kind of some of the inspiration behind this. This kind of ties in. I'm not going to steal your thunder, Mike, but this kind of ties in with budget. Domestically, the film became the highest grossing debut horror film based on an original screenplay with $176 million, dethroning Nico's favorite movie of all time, The Blair Witch Project, which grossed over $140 million.
Movie's great. Go ahead.
So this movie was filmed in Alabama, in Fairhope, Alabama, I believe. And so even though it was filmed in Alabama, Jordan Peele stressed the fact that he did not want this movie to be portrayed as it took place anywhere in the South. He didn't want it to, he said we deliberately avoided setting the movie in a red state territory because it was really important to not have the villains in this film reflect the typical red state who's typically categorized as being racist. He felt like that was too easy. Instead, he wanted this film to explore the false sense of security that African Americans can have with the sort of New York liberal types. And so it's later in an article that was written in the Syracuse Post-Standard, the movie is allegedly takes place in upstate New York. Just two more. On the Rotten Tomatoes top 100 horror movies list, this movie is actually ranked at the very top, despite it being a much more recent release than most of the films on the list. The last one, I just think this is really fucking cool of Jimmy Kimmel. The 2017 Oscar Awards was hosted by Jimmy Kimmel. Before the awards, Lil Rel, who played Rod, came on Jimmy Kimmel's show and he was one of his guests. And it was discovered that he didn't have a ticket to the movie. He said he called to get a ticket to the Oscars, and they told him, unfortunately, you're not in that first group of the allotted tickets for this movie. And so Jimmy Kimmel said, no, we're going to get you in the movie. It's not like you had some small part. You're a big part of this movie. So he actually got Lil Rel into the Oscars as his guest. So I thought that was really cool of him.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Brian,
It's also unbelievable that they tried to leave him out.
I know.
No, Dustin said mine, both of the Eddie Murphy ones, so go ahead.
Okay. Lil Rel Howery stated that real-life TSA agents constantly recognize him since his film's release. Jordan Peele said the title is also a reference to what he often hears black audiences shout at the screen while watching horror films, yelling at a character to get out. In this movie, Rod and Andre both say it to Chris. Chance the Rapper was so impressed by the movie that he bought all of the movie tickets from certain Chicago movie theaters just so people could go see the film for free. In one of his tweets talking about the film, he says, just pull up with an ID and enjoy the movie. And the last one I got is when writer, co-producer, and director Jordan Peele was asked if Universal Pictures wanted him to do a sequel to this film. He said, of course they have. It was the first thing they said. Let's do a sequel. He goes on to say, honestly, I'm open to it. I love the project, but I won't do a sequel just for some kind of cash grab. If it's right, if it feels good, and if I feel like if it can beat the original, I'll do it. So I respect that he's not just trying to get money and he wants to actually do it right.
Yeah, there had been, I think it was in the summer of this year, there had been some rumblings that they were starting to put together some kind of spec script for it. Him and a few other people. I mean, mostly Peele. but I know that if he does it, he wants the same crew, the same everybody. So I am interested if that ever comes to fruition. There's a part of me that thinks it does at some point, and I'd be very interested to see that. Box office. Okay, let's talk about it. The budget was $4.5 million, which is beans compared to a lot of other movies. Dustin mentioned the American gross. And that's $176 million. You combine everything else, the worldwide gross is $255.5 million. That's making your money back. That's quite a nice chunk of change. That looks like Nico's bank account.
Yeah, all right.
Is that before or after he donated $500 million to FSU?
Brother, that's after. He had more in there.
Oh, wow.
That's lies. All right. Anywho, let's do the favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Anybody in particular want to go first? Or y'all want me to kick it off?
Go ahead, Nico. We talked enough.
I'll kick us off. Favorite kill, I chose Dean. Antler stabbed him to his chest and neck. I thought it was pretty awesome. We haven't seen a good deer killing since Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yes, sir.
Least favorite kill, I chose Jeremy just because I couldn't stand him. I wanted to see his death on screen. I wanted to see him get killed more. I fuck Jeremy. Is annoying as hell. All right, anywho, I think this is a very good movie with great acting, atmosphere, creepy moments, and some very well-timed comedy. Daniel Kaluuya is excellent as the lead, and I really like Lil Rel as his best friend. Really good kills at the end, and I like the ending they went with. Only negatives really is I predicted the twist in the theaters as soon as it happened. And I think, albeit it's mostly metaphorical, the concept is a bit hard to believe. Also, just not the first movie I'd pick up to rewatch. Even though it's not a tough watch, it's not like super unrewatchable or anything. Regardless, very good movie, 8 out of 10.
I can go ahead and go if you want to. My best kill, Jeremy. I hated that character, so I was glad to see him go. Worst kill to me, I picked Missy because I don't understand why we didn't get to see that. I mean, I can understand maybe when movies in the 90s or hell in the late 80s have to cut things down because you got that absolute bullshit of MPAA back then. But after we've seen Hostel, Saw, things like that, and even in this movie, you show cutting a head open, and taking a brain out of a head, but we don't see Missy get stabbed. I mean, I don't know. Such a main character, arguably, with Rose she's the main villain, I would even say. So I don't know. I would have liked to have seen that. And also, I think as far as the movie goes, obviously great character development, but I think I would have liked to have seen them play up the flash, camera flash thing a little bit more. Maybe have him hit Georgina with the flash at some point. So he knows to go to that a little bit, more at the end. Because again, he wasn't 100%. It didn't seem like to me anyway that he was 100% sure that the flash is what made old dude kind of come to. But I would have also liked to have seen a little bit more suffering from Chris. I mean, as weird as that sounds, he was scared, but I feel like that if you would have been tortured a little bit more as like shown more of the terror of being trapped inside the body that you can't help. The stuff that I said really scared me. I think I would have liked to have maybe seen a little bit more of that. And I told you I would contradict myself because I'm wanting to make this movie longer, and yet I complained earlier about it dragging a little bit more. But it's just some things I think that could have done even better, or at least me watching something I would have liked to have seen. But I gave it an 8.25.
Okay. Dustin, I was going to let you go last on your movie, but if you want to go ahead, man.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So my favorite kill is the same as Nico. It's Dean. Anytime we get an antler kill, which is very rare, but we get it here, and I mentioned Silent Night, Deadly Night earlier. So you can, again, listen to that review at don'tgoooutthere.com, which you should, because it's way underrated. Anyway. But my least favorite is actually Walter because – kind of like Dustin mentioned, man, I was kind of hoping he would get out of there and maybe some things would get fixed, or I don't know. Very sad to see that character go, especially he kind of has a saving grace in the last act of the film. I think that's really good. I praise this movie enough. I don't have a whole lot of negative. Yeah, there's some maybe a few things I would tweak here and there from some characters, but outside of that, man, I just think this movie is so good. And to me, it's rewatchable. Now, I do understand why it's not for other people, but I just think the story is so it sucks me in every time. I think it's topical always. I think the horror is done well. The suspense elements are done well. Camera work from Peele is great. Cinematography, score, all the things I really like about a good horror film, they're all there. All the pieces are there, and I can't say enough about the script and the acting and the way the two gel together. I think it's really, really good. I don't have a whole lot of negative to say. So it's just the opposite of the Thanksgiving review that we did, where I gave a movie a 0.5. I give this movie a 9.5.
Man, you saying this was a top 10 review for all time? I thought for sure you were going to hit it with the 10.
I really wanted to, but I have to kind of separate my levels here. I think I give Halloween a 9, so that should let you know. No, I gave it a 9.5, didn't I? Same level. Same level.
So yeah, I've already gushed over this movie a lot. I'm not gonna continue to do so and keep saying everything I've said. I think this movie does a great job of bringing to light a lot of things and a lot of situations that Black people deal with that the average white person might not even realize. You may think that you're being a friend to them, but really you're just being awkward and cringy. This movie has a little bit of nitpicks. Like I wish they would have expanded on the Flash. I echo that sentiment and tried that out a little bit more. Maybe expand, see if you could rescue some of the, Walter and Georgina. I wish that every one of the white people at that party would have died. That's a nitpick, major nitpick. As far as my favorite kill, I went with Dean with the deer. The irony, the poetic justice of that death just is too good to pass up. Least favorite death was Georgina because a couple things. Number one, she got ran over by a car. If Chris hadn't got out and got her, he probably would have got away instead of running into the tree. And then it's just kind of a lame ass way to go too. She in a car wreck and she died, but he was fine. I don't know. Didn't like that death very much. As for the rating, this movie's near flawless. If you know how I rate movies, this is a pretty damn good one. I'm going to give it a 9.25. That puts our composite score at 8.75.
Okay.
Nice. Very nice. Hey, before you go, Nico, I'm going to do what no one else did. So in our group chat, as we did this show, we decided to come up with sequel names for Don't Go Out There Too.
Get out to.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. One of those. So Brian said to get two out, which is fantastic. The number 2, of course. My man Dustin, get out to Electric Boogaloo. I said don't get out there, which I just slipped up and spoiled, so that sucks. Nico, get out. Chris Takes Manhattan. You fucking
They're in New
asshole.
York.
I fuck with that one.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Dustin, get out H2O. Yeah, if they wait another however many years, that works out great.
Yeah.
Get out Evil. Evil dies tonight.
I'll throw one more out there. I'll just say Wes Craven's new Get Out.
Nice.
Has nothing to do with Wes Craven. He's not involved in the project at all, but that's just the name of the movie.
Hey, I'm sure Nico would like Get Out Resurrection. So anyway.
Cult of Get Out.
Oh,
We just got canceled.
All right.
That happens.
Let's shout out our blood donors. I don't know what just happened. Camp level reoccurring. The blood donors we have are Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, and Alex Seligson. Our camp counselor reoccurrings are Hunter Nelson, Karen, Shan Petrusevich, Dennis Kennedy, and Edwin Hernandez Gunn. Our legendary blood donors with film reviews we still have to do are Missy Wall and Joe Larson. And our final girl donor we have is for a big friend of mine on Instagram, Danny C. Naps. Go follow her and Joe Black Tattoos. He does great tattoo work if you want to check them out. Any final thoughts on Get Out before we get Brian announces his pick?
No.
I'll just say real quick, love everyone regardless of their skin color. We're all humans. This world would be a lot better if we just love each other and treat each other equally. Brian, you want to announce your pick for next week?
Yeah, so December, I wanted to go with a Christmas themed
Same.
pick. It's a one that I felt like is kind of overdue. You could argue that it's not horror, but I think it's definitely in the subgenre. But 1984's missed my birthday by 1 year. 1984's Gremlins, another PG rated horror / comedy, but it's
Said
Christmas movie to me.
we did Beetlejuice, and also 1984. What a fucking year for horror, man! What Friday 4, Nightmare on Elm Street, Gremlins.
Yeah.
I'm missing some. It's a fantastic year for horror.
Very good year. Any more final thoughts?
That's it.
No way that Nico likes Gremlins. No way.
I haven't seen
Oh,
Gremlins
no,
in a long time.
absolutely
But I
not.
remember liking it. But I haven't seen it in a long time.
In about 3 days, we're gonna get a sorry Brian text. It's coming.
No.
I predict it.
I expect it. It's all right.
Tired of all this bullying. Anywho, appreciate all the support. This was a great episode, one we needed to do, one I was a little intimidated to do, but I'm glad we did it. Appreciate all the support. Y'all have a good one. Get the fuck out of there. Just want to remind everybody.